morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another fine Wednesday. Welcome Wednesday morning. Welcome to another coffee break chat. I'm your host, James Jackson. He/they pronouns. Executive producer, Light Thief Productions. Um, and we've got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking Juneteenth. It's mostly a Juneteenth show. Even our special guest is talking Juneteenth, and so. Um, we're going to be talking about Juneteenth. We're going to be talking about local politics as usual. Just some interesting things happening in local politics. With a little bit of the Parker administration just kind of saying it as it is, and saying what I've always said about the Parker administration, but just saying it out loud in a hearing. And we'll talk about Built to Last, a program that should actually be pretty helpful for long-term Philadelphia residents and generational wealth. But I'm going to bring on screen Rick. Rick is a regular guest, but in case anybody doesn't know you or doesn't know who you are, please introduce yourself, your pronouns, and what it is you do.
Rick Lewis, pronouns are I, am, he, him. I'm a theater professional, do a bunch of different things theatrically, and I'm a local artist, activist, sort of a politician in Burlington County as a Democratic committee rep and general shit stir.
I always love the concept of politicians because like politicians in like like kind of the original idea of the country were like supposed to be kind of the point at which the shit rolled downhill too, and not like a class of like it was never meant to be a vocation. It was meant to be something that you didn't want to do but kind of were forced to do by virtue of the fact that you wanted the area you lived in to prosper. And now that it's something that we aspire to or claim to sometimes. Um,
I I guess I got involved because I'm very opinionated and have a big mouth, and there was an opportunity to do so, and I felt like there needed to be people in my historically exclusive is the term I use town and region who had a different perspective than what is here typically. So that's what got me involved. And it's odd because I realized long ago I will only ever have a certain level of political involvement because I don't have the personality, temperament, or desire to do all of the things that it takes to go further. But I do what I can.
all of the things that it takes are interesting because like like I was saying, like politics was never meant to be a vocation, and but it does take a certain type of person that has a set of skills that not necessarily everyone has, like the ability to just say things just a certain way so that that people accept it, or find a middle ground when like there isn't an obvious middle ground and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't think I honestly have the skill set either. But yeah, I've had people ask me like, when am I gonna run for office? And I'm like, probably never.
I tell people often I would make a great politician, but I'm a lousy candidate.
Mm,
When it comes to things like figuring out legislation, figuring out what would work. I have a general philosophy that what people do in their own houses, in their own churches, blah, 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 is whatever. But when we intersect as a society, it's necessary to find things that work for everybody. So, in a lot of ways, like I'd be a great politician,
right, right,
uh, but I'm a shitty candidate because I live the life that I want to live and I say the things that I want to say,
right.
and I won't, I won't, I don't. appease enough types of people.
We're off on a tangent here, but what I want to follow this tangent just for a minute, just because it's interesting because like the difference between a candidate and an office holder is wildly vast. Like, like a candidate, you're selling your point of view, right? You're saying, "Hey, these are the things that I think would work for, for these issues." And then as an elected official, you're supposed to kind of go, "Okay, what does everybody else think?" and kind of incorporate it into your actions.
Right. Which and both of those are what's supposed to happen. A lot of times, particularly locally, that happens less and less, I think. Um, there's the like we're in this climate that's much more of how many people can I convince that I dislike what they dislike and that I like what they like.
Right.
And then once people become office holder, like I feel like there's two types. I feel like there's like the AOC Jasmine Crockett locally Troy Singleton types who are in there and are actually trying to legislate what they think and believe.
Right.
And then there's the ones, which is most of our local politicians and definitely most of Congress, who are about, okay, how do I stay here?
Right.
And if I happen to do some things that are helpful, that help me stay here, well, that's nice.
Right. But
But
primarily, how do I set up my nest egg for when I'm out of office and make sure that yeah. Um let's change topics. Let's go on to Juneteenth, and then we'll come back to this because this ties in with the mayoral stuff. I think it's interesting, the types, and we can tie it in with the mayoral stuff. But let's talk about Juneteenth. I'm gonna play the dumb person. Um, because I know you know enough about Juneteenth, and you have a show today, and it started what 2 days ago that you started the
uh,
readings.
we have the first reading on Saturday. We have the first reading on Saturday. We have our second stage reading today, and then the third one's tomorrow.
Right, and that's at
The Fringe Arts
Fringe Arts
Theater,
Theater, which is
one
right down on the waterfront.
right, 140. It's been at 140 Christopher Columbus Boulevard, which has been I've been telling people Delaware Avenue because I'm from Philly. And somebody tried to look it up and they were like, I can't find Delaware Avenue. So yeah, so it's basically Delaware Avenue and Race Street
Yeah, you
for
could give them the
control.
Race Street address too, if you don't want to use Columbus Boulevard.
Well, yeah, that. But it's been the reading that we did on Saturday was pretty cool, and the audience received it really well. And what's been really interesting about this show is it's written on two levels. It's written on the level of, and I don't want, it's been tricky because I don't want to give spoilers, but it's an individual who goes through a traumatic experience, um, goes through a type of art therapy, and then deals with the trauma and comes out on the other end. But what it's really about is Black history, post-traumatic slave syndrome, and how different traumas have been inflicted on the Black community, and yet the Black community is still resilient and thriving and moving forward. Um, but I wrote it so that people who could not identify with the Black experience or the experience of the diaspora could look at something like mental health and mental illness and relate. And so the parallels could be drawn, and so people can look at it and go, oh, I kind of get it now. And the reaction, we had our first talk back on Saturday, and those reactions were fantastic and exciting. And I'm really looking forward to see what happens when we do the readings in Philly. It's pay what you will, or don't pay anything. I'm really much more interested in getting this into people's eyes. I mean, if they want to throw some dollars at us, that's great. But 7:30, Fringe Arts Theater. The show's called Coloring Book, and it's some shit.
It's a shit. We're I hope to be able to go tonight. And see it. I want to like I said, I want to play the dumb person for a minute and talk about Juneteenth overall. Um
A bunch of people on my Facebook feed have beaten you to it, but
I'm sure. I'm sure. But yeah, this is why I want to talk about it because I mean, this will be probably the second year where like Fox News acts really confused about the concept of a national holiday being declared by the president. Um, so why what is Juneteenth? What is Juneteenth all about? Why would we celebrate Juneteenth as a national holiday?
well, because there was this really horrible institution that we had for a couple hundred years called slavery, where the only population of Americans that was subjugated and forced into labor over generations,
By status
finally,
of birth, yeah.
right, were finally uh, declared not property, um, on paper anyway.
Yeah.
I tell people, it's like slavery changed, but on paper it went away. And so we look at this absolute horror that was a national institution, and we made it go away. And Juneteenth is when we celebrate that ending.
And why Juneteenth? Why June 19th? Why is it
Okay, so because in true American form, a couple of years after the government said, "Hey, these people aren't property anymore," there were a whole bunch of people who were like, "Well, if we don't tell them, they won't know because they don't get the newspaper down here."
And they can't
So,
read because we force them
because we
not to
told them they're
read.
not allowed to read, right? Um, so there were a whole bunch of people who were freed that just weren't told and just didn't know. So in Galveston, Texas, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed and put into law, the last bunch of slaves finally found out that they had been freed.
Well, to be specific, it was the last time that a federal officer issued the order to inform a population that they were free.
That's fair. That's fair. I believe that actually the last state was actually New Jersey, but what?
Um,
But yeah,
yeah, because even in the Wikipedia article, the Wikipedia article notes that some states that had slavery and jurisdictions that had slavery they continued to have slavery after the Emancipation Proclamation because they didn't declare themselves separate from the Union, and so their laws didn't change. The Emancipation Proclamation only affected the Confederacy. And so, not until the 19th Amendment was passed did all enslaved people become free, technically.
it surprises people when I tell them that Burlington County was one of those places.
Hmm.
They're like, in New Jersey? I'm like, yes, yes, here in
Yeah.
New Jersey. But it's funny. So yesterday, all right, so Medford, the big town that's close to where I live, has one of these Facebook groups, one of these local Facebook groups, and it's almost a Trump and GOP platform at this point,
Hmm.
as opposed to a local group. Um, but one of the group administrators posted a thing yesterday about Juneteenth and how, like, all of the Medford municipal offices would be closed, blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
And the pushback um on
On
that
having
whole,
a federal holiday.
right, right, has been, and it's great because you ask a couple questions and the real motivation kind of comes out. But what's been most interesting to me is the group of people who balk at Juneteenth and pretend that it's about the date that it's on.
Right. Instead of, like because it's the national day of independence. Well, isn't that July 4th?
No, it's even worse than that. Like they'll talk about when the Civil War ended, or when slavery ended, or when literally like when New Jersey freed their. And I'm like, okay, so is your beef really the day that we pick? And I don't want to get into the whole like, okay, white people, what makes you think you get to choose when the fucking day is?
Right.
I don't even get into that part. But they try to make it sound like
The
that
problem is
they're
the date. Yeah.
right. The problem is the
It,
historical
it's
inaccuracy,
it's
and
not
it's
it's
like,
not a problem that it so from the dumb person perspective, why have I never heard of Juneteenth before? Like, why am I just hearing about it now in 2021?
because you live in a fucking bubble. So like, and that's another thing that's weird for me. Um, there are Italian holidays, Italian religious
Mm,
holidays. Um, for which there are all sorts of celebrations and blah 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 that I know nothing the fuck about.
right.
There are Orthodox Greek holidays that happen and shut off whole sections of South Philly, and they have these that I personally, culturally, know nothing about.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean they didn't exist. It
Right.
means I don't know anything about them. And so, like,
No, no, but Juneteenth never existed before. We're just making up stuff now.
which blows my mind because, like, you tell people, it's like, no, I've known about it, for most of my life. And I realized, like, it wasn't a big thing, but, like, neither was my grandmother's birthday.
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't mean it didn't exist. It just
Not to steal a culturalism, but or I guess it's part of my culture, but not to steal something that somebody else popularized. But dear white people, you didn't hear about Juneteenth because that's part of the fucking erasure of Black
right,
joy that we talk
right,
about all the time. And if you want to know what erasure of Black joy is, this is it. This is why you've never heard of fucking Juneteenth, okay? You've never heard of Juneteenth because it was a celebration of Black joy. We did it in our community. It's the fucking cookout, okay? You didn't get invited to the cookout? Yeah, because you're not part of the cookout.
right, exactly. And when you so there's like Google blows my mind, because like if you go and you Google how long have Black people celebrated Juneteenth,
Mm-hmm.
there's tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of art. And you show people and you say, like, I pointed out, there's this one article that talks about how in the 50s and 60s, as the civil rights movement started to ramp up, lots and lots and lots of communities started sort of wrapping the two together.
Right.
Like Juneteenth was part of a celebration that really, really kicked up. And I'm like, that, and in large cities, like major cities. So you have these people who, again, are from like the Jersey suburbs or from North Carolina or wherever. And they're like, you know, Juneteenth has only been a thing for like the last decade. And you're like, no, people have been doing this since like the 50s and 60s and da 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 da.
Well, they've been doing it since 1865.
Right, right, right. But like, it's weird because you show people information and you drop it in their laps and you go, okay, it's our holiday, so I'm going to educate you folks. I'm going to give you guys like the free school lesson. Here you go. And then it just kind of denigrates because now that you've given information and now that you've provided resources and now that you've provided data, now motherfuckers just have to get mean and stupid. And I've had a couple of conversations where I'm like, look, okay, we get it. You're racist. You're a white male Protestant supremacist, and like that's where you're coming from. We understand. Now you can go away because we don't have to talk anymore because we're not talking about the issue anymore.
Right, we got it. We got your point. You don't want to recognize Juneteenth because it's not, not one of the cool holidays that you grew up with, and nothing can ever change or can be understood in a new context in the conservative mind. I this is what I don't get about like the conservative. I ostensibly even what you were talking about, like being a good politician. Conservatism is good politics. Like, and ostensibly, like if you go back to, I don't know, the 1960s or 50s, I would be considered a conservative. You would be considered a conservative because we're willing to,
No, I wasn't.
well,
Maybe
from the perspective that you're willing to consider wrapping something else into your thought process when you're talking about being a representative of people in government. You're willing to listen to the whole argument and consider it in context of history. That's conservatism. You're willing to think about the past and try and bring the values of the past into the present and affect what you're, like what you are thinking. That's conservatism, just being historically understanding. And somehow we've divorced in the United States, we've divorced conservatism from history. Like we've divorced it from the knowledge of any sort of historical context, and I don't get that.
I have a theory.
Hold on one second. I lost
Right. I was like,
your
you go away.
video.
I'm still here. I see
Yeah,
you.
I see you. I've lost your video on the. I've been having problems with Zoom ISO for some reason, and it's driving me a little nuts. Um, I'll get you back just one sec.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I'm gonna have to lean on my friend. One of my friends actually works for Zoom ISO as a technician, and I'm gonna have to lean on him to help me fix this. Um, sorry, folks. It'll just be a second. Rick is still on the call. He's just frozen because the software I used to capture his image decided to lock up. We're just going to have to uh, get a new computer over here. Is what it is. All right, let's get.
It's trying.
Yeah, let's try. And then Rick. There you are. Now you're live again. All right, continue with your point. Sorry about all that.
All right. No worries. So I came up with this sort of theory, and it's a four-part theory. So regressives are in love with what America has always been.
Or what they think
Conser-
it's always been.
no. Regressives are in love with what America has always been. Conservatives are in love with what they've always believed America has been.
Mm-hmm.
Liberals
Are in love with what America could be.
Liberals are in love with what they believe America could be.
Right.
Progressives are in love with what America has always promised to be.
Yes, I would agree with all of those points.
So when you kind of look at that, and that's why when you said that I would be considered a conservative, I sort of push back a little bit. Regressives are totally fine with what America has always been. And the concept of America changing is what's freaking them the fuck out. And that's why they want to go back to the norm. And you can look at that in any number of different ways. Conservatives, which is a larger group, believe that America has always been like, the Lone Ranger, the guys in the white hats who ride in to save the day, John Wayne, blah, 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 blah. And so because they believe that that's what America has always been, that's what they expected. to be. Um, and so I think when it comes to anything from, new holidays to DEI to the 1619 project to anything that sheds new light on what America has been or what America, yeah, like what we have been as a nation, anything that casts into doubt the prescribed vision, like rocks the boat, rocks their shit, freaks them out, and they become, when they talk about, liberals want to fundamentally change America, accurate, but that freaks them out and they see it as a bad thing.
Do liberals want?
Liberal, no, but they say, like,
Oh yeah,
progressives, absolutely.
yeah. Progressives want to fundamentally change America because we want to fundamentally change it into what was promised.
Right, right,
Liberals don't actually really want to fundamentally. They would be very happy if we could get to what was promised without changing a goddamn thing.
right. But see, progressives and conservatives don't really delineate. They don't really see liberals and progressives as different things.
Right.
Or just not. You're right. Because conservatives and regressives would be fine if we didn't change a fucking thing at all,
Right.
as opposed to the get there without actually having to get our hands dirty
Yeah,
bullshit.
the liberal, the Joe Biden liberal, the Clinton liberal is the how do we how do we make a just world that is still white and still everybody that has money still has money and everybody who doesn't have money still doesn't have money and we don't have to you know do any of those dirty things like use any of those dirty words like redistribute wealth or defund the police or anything like that.
Or right, or reparations is one of my favorite ones.
Oh no, yeah,
And
you want to see a liberal like blow his top.
hate
Just
that
mention
word.
the word reparation. So this is where we get into yeah, we can get into the mayoral politics here. I think you have an advantage here because you don't actually live in Philadelphia or have to deal with, with this. um,
Which is rough because like I love Philly so much, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so recently the city held hearings about Mayor Parker's return to office order. And there was a lot of testimony from experts saying, hey, like a return to office, just a full return to office isn't going to work. We're going to lose workers. We're going to lose money. We're going to lose productivity. Let's find some middle ground that works, for everybody. Like office work was what it was for a number of years, but we now have technology that puts people wherever they are, they're in instant access to whomever they need to be in instant access to, and you can check up on them just like you would walk by their desk. You can call them on a video call or say, hey, what's going on, via email, and if they don't respond promptly, they might not be doing their job. um,
Right.
so
Or they might be doing their job and have done their job for the day and are doing whatever else works for them for their time.
right. So
God forbid.
So there was all this expert testimony, and the justification for just basically ignoring and going ahead with a return to office policy by the representatives of Mayor Parker's office in the hearing was, quote, "This is our leadership style." Um, I, I, sure, yeah, it is, but I mean, that's just for lack of a better term, you're just being a Republican. Like, I sure, yeah, you can heavy hand through anything you want, but that's not really the Democrat. Like people are always saying like these dirty Democrat led series, these liberal cities. That's why you can't get anything done. No, it's not really why we can't get anything done. It's because they're such Democrat cities, or such one party cities that we just all we have is people from all kinds of different perspectives, political perspectives, just in the same party. I don't,
This is going to be one of those situations where, like, if I were a politician, someone would take what I'm about to say, then they would use it in a clip. It'd be terrible for my campaign. Um, I'm old, so I remember when like Frank Rizzo was in office.
Mhm.
I remember those days. And one of the things that used to happen in Philly is that Philly politicians would be shit, but they would be brazen shit.
Right,
And you knew why shit was happening and you knew who was benefiting from it, so forth and so
right.
on. One of the
Yeah, so just to put it in context for those that are born after us, something like
all the children,
Kenyatta Johnson getting busted by the FBI and investigated by the FBI for whatever he's doing wouldn't be a problem for a Philly politician in the old days. It would in fact probably get them to the office that they wanted to get to faster, because in the old days he would have been just like, yeah, and
right, right. Um, so like when you think about how commercial real estate and commercial developers grease the palms of Philadelphia politicians, it's like, why do people need to go back to in-office work? Because we have all this commercial real estate that is starting to lose rental money because they're not being full of office workers.
not even starting to. Let's bring in the fact that Dilworth Paxson, one of the largest law firms in the city, is moving out of their Center City offices.
Right.
They're moving out of a building that is directly across the street from City Hall, which they've always used that location as like one of the selling points of their offices. They're like,
Right.
"Oh,
Well,
hey,
fucking
we can cross the
Billworth
street."
Park,
Yeah.
right, is right there. Right.
So, and they've always used the location as, "Hey, we can cross the street and we can get shit done." Like we can literally walk across the street into somebody's office and they will do what we want. They've always used that reputation, and they're
Right.
moving out of that office because that office has long been underwater. I started working. In fact, this company was founded by filings from Dilworth Paxson. Like I've used them in the past, and even then they complained about the offices because the building has always been sort of underwater. It's never been a profitable building. So, like the facilities aren't kept well, and it takes them longer than the tenants would like to renew things like the carpeting in the hallways, or, repair a broken elevator and stuff like that. It's Center City office space has never been as profitable as Center City developers would like it to be.
Right.
And the not working from the office makes it even more plain to the people that are renting. Hey, I don't need 100,000 square feet across from City Hall. I need maybe 500 square feet for a front office and
Right.
meeting rooms.
Especially at what Center City real estate rates are. Side note, that's going to make this whole UARTs thing really interesting. We'll talk about that another day. but yeah, but so
The whole
you know,
U Arts thing.
right, that's three shows.
No,
Um,
and I'm waiting. I'm really waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like people are promising investigations, but I guarantee you, like whatever happened on that board is never, ever, ever, ever going to see an actual like news article or anything like that. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's going to get to the point where everybody's promised investigations, and now they're going to do the investigation. They're going to find out what really happened, and they're going to go, "Oh shit, I'm going to lose a lot of money if I actually release this publicly." So they're going to desk drawer the report, and people in like 5 years are going to go like, "Hey, didn't you investigate
whatever
this thing?"
happened,
And they're going to be
right.
like, sure, we
But what
investigated."
we want to look forward to now is oh, the merger of, you know, whoever takes it over. I'm betting it's going to be Temple,
Yeah, it's going to
but
be Temple.
and isn't it great that we can continue this Philadelphia institution? Is Temple's going to be like, hey, you Penn, fuck you. This is how you do it. We're going to show you. Anyway, right.
Higher ed
Like,
as a topic that we discussed would just be. I want to get Amy on this conversation too. Like when we have it, I want to get Amy Smith on this conversation because higher ed is a hilarious topic.
hilarious. It fucking makes my blood boil. But yeah, so in talking about, it's our leadership style and all of the, it's gonna bring, you know, commerce back to merchants in Center City and blah 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 blah. Yeah. Bullshit. Like
It's not about yeah. It's not about leadership style. It's not about
selling
bringing
hot dogs at
commerce back
lunch,
to Center City merchants. It's about hey, I donated like $5 million to your campaign through various sources. Why don't you maybe maybe if I
make my
guarantee
property
you
profitable again.
yeah, well, if I guarantee you a board position that you don't actually have to do anything except for like show up to a meeting 4 times a year, do you think you could maybe make my property profitable? Or you know,
Yeah, I'm that when I saw that coming down, like, unfortunately, like, all I could do was shrug because, like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna say?
not elect people like this. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. See, we are so way, and that's the unfortunate thing. Like, we're so way past that in so many ways for so many reasons. I mean, we had these conversations back before the primary.
Yes.
It's like, okay, in the list of, if there's a list of six people running, you know, Parker would have been my eighth pick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like, we saw the writing on the wall, we saw it coming. Unfortunately,
I do want to special shout out Tim for calling it accurately as the first accurate call of
right,
the
right.
election process.
But yeah, so eh, eh, I don't I don't know what it's going to take for Philly to be what it can be. Um,
What does it take to? I want to know what, and this applies to not just Philly, but any electorate, any body of electorate, any group of people that is like gets to vote on their own future well being. What does it take to get them to actually vote in their own best interest? Like how do you align best interest with like any politician, because it seems like as soon as you get to the point where you're actually campaigning that there's so many people fighting against the best interest of the general population that it just turns into a quagmire.
I, that's kind of the magic question, though. Um, part of what saddens me as I talk to people, um, there's too many people who don't understand what their best interests are, like what that means. And this is going to seem like a bit of a tangent. Um, so I saw someone who lately with all the shit going on with Clarence Thomas and, him being, it coming out how much he's bought and how, the gifts and the trips and all of that sort of thing. And so there's been this big thing where like people vilify rightfully Clarence Thomas, and like then they bring up Anita Hill and they're like, I wish we would have believed her. I still believe her. Blah, blah, blah. And so they'll have all of this presentation of Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill, but somehow they completely divorced Joe Biden from that whole
Right.
fiasco,
Who was like pretty key to bringing up the question.
almost single-handedly.
Yeah.
Almost, and it's like I don't, and it's like, and don't get
I
me
mean,
wrong,
it's like divorcing Joe Biden from the Clinton era, like
crime bill.
super predators
Right,
bullshit.
right. I mean, he authored the crime bill.
Right.
Like he's the primary author and sponsor. So right, and it's like, look, is Biden better than Cheeto? Sure.
By
Sewage,
a long shot.
trash is better than sewage.
Yeah.
Ebola is better than E. coli.
Right.
Like I get it. But the concept of not being honest and not saying, okay, this is a situation, this happened, this person is an absolute bag of shit, this person's a worse bag of shit, but like let's talk about what actually occurred.
Yeah. Why, like I it's the same with the pushback against defunding the police. There was huge, sudden and massive campaign against uh defund the police. And like all of the like Democrat elite, for lack of a better word, all of the actual like decision makers in like the Democratic committees were like, no, we can't have this be part of our standard bearing for the Democratic Party. We can't have this progressive ideal where we actually take money and put it into things that we actually need be part of the democratic process. And I don't understand why that happened.
Um, because the people that pay Democratic leadership, I see once you start giving ground to progressive ideas, I think one of the most frightening things that happened for the Democratic establishment was the rollouts of the COVID vaccine,
Mm.
because you had a national health initiative that didn't cost taxpayers a dime out of pocket, that incorporated things like the National Guard. A lot of the vaccine centers were like empty department stores and like unused infrastructure. Like the rollout of the vaccine was the closest thing to like Medicare for all and everybody being treated that's ever happened in our country.
Oh, and then let's also talk about actually giving unemployment benefits to freelancers. It was
Yeah,
that unemployment period was the closest to guaranteed universal basic
like
income
UBI,
that we've
right,
ever come.
right. And so when that happened and when it worked, then suddenly it's like, oh shit,
Right?
because of all.
Wait, I want to go back in time for those that are affected heavily by like current news and go back in time just 4 years and go to 2021 when we started getting all this money injected into the economy in the low end of the economy, and suddenly businesses were like, oh shit, we can still do business and we're actually making huge profits. Fuck.
Right.
And I, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but the inflation that we've seen since then is not driven by that money being injected in the economy. It's driven by all of the people at the tops of these companies taking huge and inordinate amounts of profit out of their companies that they never took before.
That's fair. That's fair. I, boy, you and I get on these tangents when we talk. So like it's weird to me. Like people do the whole, they cheer like the stock market being at record numbers, and like they talk about yay Joe Biden, go Brandon, blah 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 blah, and then like three sentences later they're pissed off at inflation and price gouging and those sorts of things, and I'm like, look, 4 years ago, Kroger, one of the supermarket conglomerates, 4 years ago, their stock price was $22 a share.
Right.
Beginning of May this year, it was $55 a share.
Right. It doubled.
So it's like you can't go yay 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 stock market and go boo 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 shareholders.
Right.
It's like there's a disconnect that's happening, that people like, and if people aren't willing to kind of look at things comprehensively and see what's happening and realize that, yeah, it's like the people at the top are, it's like they're finding ways to take more money than they've ever taken before. Um, Stock buybacks over the last 4 years have been bigger than they've ever been in the history of our country.
Yep.
Um, and somehow they get people to cheer about it. Like that's what that's the
Well,
thing.
because it's the short term gain, long term loss. That people are not really
Except the people who are gaining,
right.
the people who are losing
Right.
are two. Like it's
But
not
but
like
but
everybody's riding a wave.
yeah, no, but everybody in the United States is a temporarily embarrassed billionaire. Like we're all, we all see that Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, and he's an immigrant from South Africa who lives in the United States. I can get there. I can totally do that. He made himself out of nothing. I can do that, right?
Made himself out of
Right.
nothing. Right, yeah. So did Jeff Bezos and Taylor Swift.
Right, yeah. Made themselves out of nothing because it's not like they had parents with that were
Six
at the top
figures
of
to
the
throw out.
economy in their generation, and it's not like they didn't fail upwards a couple dozen times each of them, um, or have the advantage of being able to do something completely wrong and still make a profit
And
out
still
of
be
it.
on their
Yeah,
feet. Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
In case anybody's questioning, yes, we're sarcastic about everything we just said.
um but yeah, but like going but taking all of that and going back to the question of getting people to actually vote in their own self-interests. Um like it blows my mind how many people, like if you go back and you look at the Democratic primary in Philly, and where Parker made it very clear that she was going to do things like mass sweeps in Kensington, and that she was going to like address the problem of safety in Philly by bolstering the police department,
Mm-hmm.
not by dealing with infrastructure and actually putting the city back together from the bottom up. Like those things were very obvious, but because there were a because the Black community is the biggest single voting block in the city, um, and that was enough, and that overcame like whatever issues, whatever fundamentals were going to be dealt with otherwise. Um,
And
all
I
of
would
the
like to I would like to say, like, just for those that are armchair quarterbacking or hindsight 2020ing, this had nothing like. And what this conversation always drives me nuts when it comes to like strategists, like people that like look at elections and like what happened and like try and talk strategy. They're going to talk about they start talking about, oh, does pro policing, heavy handed approach to things really resonate with the black community? No, no, it doesn't. If you go out into the black community, if you talk to your neighbors and go, hey, would you like to see more cops on the street? They're gonna go, no, not really.
Police.
Huh?
They're gonna go fuck the police.
Right. And even the black ones, even the black cops, they're gonna be like, no, I don't want to see another cop on my street. Like, you talk to you talk to my block captain, and she's gonna go, no, we don't want to see more patrols on our street. We just want to see the drug dealers not out on the street or shooting each other on the street. We whatever it takes to do that. That's what I want. But that's neither here nor there. Because the conversation never gets that deep with
Right.
the election politics in Philly. The conversation in the election politics in Philly is, who is my pastor supporting? Who is my pastor's wife supporting? Who are the Democratic leaders of the district supporting?
Right. The ward leaders, the council people. Right.
Right. Who is on the top of my sample ballot? Who's got the check mark next to their name on my sample ballot? I'm not gonna bother. I don't. It's not even a matter of I'm not gonna bother. It's a matter of I don't have the fucking time after I've been trying to work 40 hours a week, plus do a side hustle, plus find resources for my family to actually eat this week. I don't have time to look into the politics of these five candidates and figure out how that's actually going to affect me in the future. I'm going to hope that these people who do have the time to look into this are going to help me. But then you get, oh, I've got money to give you for your ward leadership vote, and they don't actually help. So I don't. How do we? I don't know how you fix that.
I
I think we're getting close. I think we might be getting close. Let's put it that way. I think there were Democratic ward leaders, both in the mayoral election and in the follow up city council election, who really really pushed against the Democratic leadership to back progressive candidates, and got a lot of pushback, got threats, but still actually looked at the candidates and supported some progressive candidates, even though that was what they were told not to do.
right. I think I we're probably we're it's kind of like 2016. If if Bernie had been allowed, and I say allowed,
Hmm.
if Bernie had been allowed to run his course, it would have changed national Democratic politics and policy probably forever. I feel like whatever happens after 2024 is another one of those kinds of moments. I feel like in Philly, it's probably going to be another 3 or 4 election cycles. Like, because in Philly, it's really hard to be a one-term mayor.
Hmm.
Like, you can have, like, Jim Kenney, arguably the worst mayor in my lifetime, and I'm almost 60. But like, he was a 2-term mayor. He was shit.
To be fair, he played the progressive politics and local politics game very well.
Uh, we'll call that subjective.
I
And
he played the
and
game very. I don't. I'm not saying he did his job well. I'm saying he did the
that
politics side well.
which okay, and there's a whole bunch of, like, there's the again, candidate politician.
Right.
So like my metric is things that were actually accomplished and or improved.
Right.
Eh.
Eh.
Um, so,
There were a
but
couple of
but
things, but not much. Yeah.
but again, like looking at that, it's hard to not be a two-term mayor.
Right.
And and so I think Cheryl Park is going to be
Well,
around.
let's look at why it's hard to be a two-term mayor or not to be a two-term mayor in Philly, because the leadership of the local campaign is the current mayor, and the current mayor's, like, so unless a term limit is forcing them out, the Democratic candidate is going to be the current mayor.
Right.
You can't, there's nothing to do. Like, I couldn't run as a spoiler in, you or I or any other politician couldn't run as a spoiler in the next election. There's just no room for it. There's nobody that would donate money to our campaign, unless it was like seen as like a prelude to the next campaign. There's nobody that would, even consider voting for a spoiler candidate in a primary, because there's no way
Right.
to
Unless
it.
it's like Brian Dawkins,
Hmm.
or it's like if Dr. J decided to run some completely weird outlier shit. Like, but right. So that being the case, that being the case, um, Cheryl Park is going to be around for a while,
Yeah,
and then in 8 years or 7 years now, um, there'll be sort of that revisit of what we had. And so a lot of the question will be, you know, what groundwork is laid between now and then to get people to look at things differently. Um, and things like, you know, taking a whole bunch of addicts off the street in Kensington, but shipping them to, and that was like funky, shipping them to like Pottstown. Um, what kind of effect is that going to have? Are people going to be more like, oh, well, that was a really shitty thing to do? Or are they going to be like, hey, fewer addicts in Kensington?
right.
And so, so after those 8 years, then we get back into a situation kind of where we are. And that's where, like, the narrative may or may not be rewritten and the involvement may or may not happen. But I think the pushback against what has always been Philly politics is still a good 12 to 16 years out
Yeah.
before it really starts turning around and doing what it can and should do.
Let's talk two things before we wrap up here. Broken Clock's posting. Broken Clock is right twice a day. The mayor's office agreed to a change in its proposed budget last week, which is providing $5 million for the Built to Last program. The Built to Last program provides money for long-term residents of houses in Philadelphia to do things like repair their roofs or replace plumbing, and also future-proofing of their houses with, like, instead of air conditioning, doing a heat pump install or something like that. The $5 million is more than the program's entire budget this fiscal year, and they're getting it next fiscal year. It's already been approved into the budget for next fiscal year. Um, Accidentally right, shrewd strategy. What do you think?
Um, I think the big trick is going to be kind of where it lands. Because like Built to Last has done like 200, 300 homes so far, which in, 300 homes in Mount Airy is way different than 300 homes in Strawberry Mansion.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of curious as to where it's going to land. Um, like a big thing for me, like when we talk about like reducing gun violence and da 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 da. a lot of that to me has to deal with rebuilding infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
if
if you make people comfortable in their houses, they tend to do less antisocial things.
right, so if it winds up going into places and neighborhoods where it's actually going to start to revamp existing infrastructure, as opposed to just upgrading already,
Upgraded houses.
right. I think it could do some good. Um, I'm I'm always worried about where it's going to happen, the way, like, who gets the money and where is it actually put in place. But the concept, like, I'm all for.
Mm-hmm. I mean, ostensibly, there's an application process. You have to be low income and you have to live in an older home that hasn't been upgraded recently. So, all of that seems to say that it would push the money to the areas that are most affected by gun violence and drug crime and stuff like that. Um,
As long as those people have the time from their
yes.
three jobs and everything else that they're doing
Yeah, to
to
seek the
actually sit down and
resources. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, pushing this through another program, like, just as an example, like pushing it through an NGO, like the Save Our Homes Philly, or yeah, one of those NGOs that is on the fringe of, like, connecting people with resources. That would be the way to do it. Is it going to
Right.
get done? I don't know. It depends on how the leadership of the Built to Last program, which is through the Philadelphia Energy Authority, depends on if they think they have the resources to publish this program themselves, or if they want to partner with somebody like that, or whatever. Yeah.
So, but ultimately, like, it like you said, stop clock is right twice a day. Like, hopefully it's a good thing, and hopefully it does what it's supposed to do. And it like, it's hard to say anything negative about it at this point
Right.
because
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't want to say anything negative about it. I think it's a great idea. Is it? But my question is, why did the Parker administration think this is a good idea? Because
because it
ultimately,
is. But why
ultimately,
did they think it is?
yeah,
Right.
ultimately, it seems like a lot of good ideas die on the doorstep of City Hall. At any rate, last thoughts. People should come see your show tonight. Where can they see it? What do they have to pay?
The Fringe Arts Theater, which is at Christopher Columbus Boulevard and Race Street, or 140 Christopher Columbus Boulevard. 7:30 is the time. It is pay what you will. And all you have to do is show up and buckle up. Um, get ready to think about some stuff.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me today.
Gladly. Thank you for having me.
I'm gonna go one up of me. I got to get out of here pretty soon. I'm gonna outro the show, but always welcome back on, and I hope to set up a conversation about higher ed politics in the next.
Let me know.
Yeah.
Let
Well,
me
we'll have to
know.
figure out when everybody's schedule is free. Oh, I'll have to. Jess also wants to participate. Jess commented that she wants to participate, and I think this will be an interesting conversation. Higher ed
Really.
politics. All right. I will talk to you again soon. Thank you for joining us. I'm gonna go with one up me
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Later.
later. And thank you to our audience. I really appreciate you for joining us every week. In case you don't get to join us live, or we're going on at a bad time for you, or what have you, please feel free to watch it in rerun. It goes live in rerun as soon as we end the broadcast. You can watch it at your convenience. If you like what you see, please consider joining our Patreon or donating to us in any of the ways that you normally donate to a group of folks who you like what they're doing. Um, Please like, share, and subscribe. I know everybody says that on their videos, but it's the only way we can get our information to you. There's all the algorithm stuff. It's constantly changing. One of the things that really helps us is engagement, and it will always help us because if you're watching that's the goal of all of the platforms is to get more eyeballs on their platform so that they can take advantage of the numbers to sell space to advertisers. So if you like what you're seeing, please hit the like button, hit the share button, share it with your friends, even if you don't like you don't have anything specific that you want to say about it. Just hit the share button, share it on your own wall or on your own links, etc. We're live on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Blue Sky, all of the platforms where we post it to. And so if you like it everywhere, share it. Watch it in the background, listen to it on your headphones while you're doing something else. It is a podcast on YouTube, so you can do that. And please, consider supporting us that way if you don't want to support us monetarily or don't have the funds to support us monetarily. And tune in next week. We're gonna talk with Lindsay Smiling about the. I believe we're gonna talk with Lindsay about some awards that local theater company has won. Some pretty prestigious awards. And we'll talk about that next week. We'll talk more local politics, more other things that are going on in the area, and we will, of course, take your comments and relay them and talk about them on the show. So yeah, tune in next week. Hope you've enjoyed today's show. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.